Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Macomb, Illinois. Hot right now, 80 some degrees, muggy. And then, as we were talking before the show, it's going to get chilly again. I can't believe it, folks. And someone else who informed me of this, just completely disbelief, as I am here, is local foods educator Katie Parker in Adams County. Hey, Katie.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
I can't believe it. So this weekend, 40-degree low.
Right.
I can't win. Just can't win with these tomatoes. I don't think we'll have to cover them up, though. They're on their own now.
No, hopefully they've gotten used to our nighttime lows, and maybe we'll get a surprise. We were supposed to get rain today, and we haven't gotten any yet. So the weather is forever changing.
It rained off and on already here in Macomb, and you didn't know, is it because it's just so humid or is it actually raining? Why are you soaking wet? Are you just sweating? You don't know why. So, and someone who I knows that feeling because he lived in Florida for a while here is horticulture educator Ken Johnson in Jacksonville. Hey, Ken.
Hello, Chris and Katie. It's definitely humid. That's why I had to cut the hair and cut the beard. It's getting too hot for all that hair.
I'm glad you trimmed up your beard there, Ken. You're looking like you're ready to start riding the bike again. So I know we had to take Ken off the road so he could do his horticulture work here with Extension. So, but now we've tamed him. We think. Maybe. Well, we are excited to have our special guest with us today. We have horticulture educator Martha Smith with us today. So Martha, welcome to the show.
Well, it's nice to be here. I'm enjoying it already.
Yes, well, yes, enjoying it already. You've been on here a couple times in this past year, so talking about native plants and what do we do? We did landscape design, I think, when we were just kicking off this thing last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a long year.
And so, Martha, where are you based? What counties do you serve?
I'm up in the Quad Cities, which is in the northwest corner of the state. So I'm Henry, Mercer, Rock Island, and Stark counties. So I'm just, only maybe about 40, 50 miles from the Wisconsin border.
Okay. I don't think about it like that, but that's wild to think. I mean, yes, I realize like we're up kind of that northern parts of the state, but I've never really thought about it like that. 45 miles from the Wisconsin border.
Yeah. Wow. And I wonder how cold we're going to get if you guys down in balmy part of the state. Mm-hmm. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, we'll report back. Hopefully so in the extension office, we've gotten a couple random, I think frost damage questions, just leaves that are maybe curled brown, but there's no signs of disease, so it's pretty much looks like some type of early frost damage back when we dipped below freezing a couple times.
Yeah, I've had several samples, and it looks to me like as the leaves were unfolding and they were still so young and tender, where they were creased or folded over still, it comes out in a pattern. So I'm tending to think, it could be some anthracnose because we have had a lot of wet, but so some of the samples just look more like a frost damage to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've also seen some anthracnose. One sample from a silver maple came in yesterday. The silver maples on this whole block I drove by, they're all loaded with it, and they're dropping leaves right now like crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a lot of reports this year of very heavy seed set on silver maples.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You are approaching a milestone in your life.
Yeah.
You have announced that you will be retiring in the coming month. Mm-hmm. I wish that was a plural on there, but month. So we want to have a little fun on the show today. We want to talk about some fun things, I want to talk about some gardens, talk about some of your favorite things in the gardens, trees. But let's kick this off. We had discussed before the show some of the things that I have always loved your presentations, and one that I have particularly enjoyed recently in the last few years is the presentation East to West and all the gardens in between. So these are gardens to see, and so you've put together a program or presentation of like the list of gardens, botanical gardens, that if you haven't seen them, you need to go get out there and see them. And you even had a map detailing how people could drive. That was amazing. And the people in these audiences, there were audible gasps and oohs and ahs as some of these things that you were showing. So all right, before we dive into this topic of botanical gardens, could we define what is a botanical garden, and like what's the difference between that and say an arboretum?
Well, I've been asked this question many times, and for me, the best way to describe it is a botanical garden is more the wow of horticulture. I mean, you're into botanic gardens and they want to show you, you know, the latest this and the latest that, and they want to put it together in combinations that inspire you and give you ideas. So to me, a botanic garden has that plus. Many of them have a research side, but they could be displaying annuals, perennials, roses, herbs, trees, you know, the whole gamut of what horticulture is, where an arboretum to me features more woody plants, trees, shrubs, kind of a living collections, if you would that way. If you've been up to the Morton Arboretum and you're driving through, they have their, you know, maple grove, and they might have their spruce, you know, area. So it's where they put these trees together, different cultivars, so that you can see how they grow side by side. Now, they too could have a botanical side, you know, more of the their entrance and all. But usually for me, an arboretum is more about the woody plants.
So to you, what makes a good botanical garden, and do you have a favorite?
You know, that's a loaded question. Boy, you know, you could ask me that question at a different time of year and I probably would have a different answer. There's several that I find to be on my favorite list. Up the Northeast, there's so many wonderful gardens up there. You've got Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania, a short drive away. You have, I'm drawing a blank right now, Chanticleer. They're really well done garden. I don't know if it's classified as a botanical garden or an arboretum, but it's just very well put together. And I know recently they've been doing some renovations and some changings. One of the things at Chanticleer is they built their own ruins. They have what looks like an old abandoned building, stone building that's half fallen apart, and how they've worked the plants around it. And it's just wonderful how they've done it. Then if you go up the coast a little bit further, you have the coastal Maine Botanic Gardens. And this was, oh gosh, probably 10, 12 years ago. I was on a tour of gardens in that part of the country, and they were just kind of doing a reopening of it. And recently I've seen some other pictures, and it's just beautiful. I mean, not only are you in Maine, but you are on the coast, and it's a beautiful garden. Of course, I've got to say Chicago Botanic Gardens. I have to say Missouri Botanic Gardens. And then there's all the other ones around the United States, Botanic Gardens, Atlanta. So pick a month and I'll have a favorite.
Do we have any good botanical gardens here in West Central Illinois?
Yes, we do. We do. Here in the Quad Cities, we have the Quad City Botanic Gardens, and they are in the process of putting in a children's garden. So we have that. If you cross the river and go into Davenport, there's another garden over there called Vanderveer Botanical Park, which has a nice greenhouse, and they do nice displays and all that. And they do have some very nice plantings on the grounds. If you go a little bit further north up into Rockford, you've got Clem Botanical Garden, Arboretum, they both classify it, the name together. Des Moines, there's a really nice botanic garden. And there's one other one. Oh, if you get up into southern Wisconsin, you have Olbrich Botanic Gardens, very nice. And you could also probably, either on your way up or coming back south, could go to Rotary Gardens in Janesville. So they're not all classified strictly as botanical gardens or arboretums, but they sure are nice places for people to see the wow of horticulture.
I remember as a horticulture student finding inspiration at Chicago Botanic Garden. They had a hillside planted in Russian sage, so a kind of a light purple flower, and intermixed within that they had, I believe it was a yellow coneflower. So this was right when they started breeding coneflowers, all these different colors, and they came out with the yellow coneflower. They had intermixed these two together, and it was a complementary color scheme, the yellow and the purple. And I've been in love with that yellow purple thing. Maybe that's why I chose Macomb, Illinois to live, because their school colors at WIU is that. But I mean, Botanic Gardens is such a good resource just for people to go for inspiration. I mean, it might be on a larger scale, but some things can be sized down to home yard gardens.
Well, and now with the whole thing about forest bathing and getting people out into nature, just to go and walk through a botanic gardens, maybe on a lunch hour, or, to have that nearby where you can really go year round. My family used to live in St. Louis, and my sister worked at the Kemper Center at the Missouri Botanic Gardens. So she got to see it, year round and just walk the grounds. And I always thought that would just be a wonderful place to be.
I interned at Missouri Botanical Garden, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. I could not, there's no way I can speak higher of it than I ever could, but I will brag about it. So at Missouri Botanical Garden, did you know everything is hand pruned? There is no mechanical shearing. There is no engine based shearing going on there. Everything is hand pruned. And so I think Missouri Botanical Garden brags about that. They'll go up to Chicago and they'll see the Hedge shears up there, and they'll say, haha, we do everything by hand. You guys are using engines. We're so traditional.
Old fashioned way.
That's right. You get a good workout with your hands. You better have a good pair of pruners.
Reducing your carbon input.
I guess so. Yeah. You move the ladder a lot. It takes a while. So, if I was going to go visit a botanic garden, I could only visit one, Martha. I really wanted to go see Longwood, but Chanticleer also is calling to me.
It's yes.
If I have a limited time budget, where would you say to go?
Well, that whole area, since they're so close together, and then as you get closer into Philadelphia, there's some other really nice garden spots. Also, the whole Longwood, if I'm remembering correctly, was DuPont money. And there's Winterthur, which is also very close, and that was the other DuPont. So you would have that home to look at. That's the one that is more into the furniture and kind of that time period, and it's just a beautiful home. So, right there, you would have three places, all within a fairly short driving condition. Yeah.
And so I know when you go to these places, they're pushing like become a member, do this, do that. And I didn't know this until I had worked at Missouri Botanical Garden. But once you're a member at one botanic garden, you're in the group for a whole slate of gardens across North America, I believe. You can get into a lot of different botanic gardens by being a member at maybe one nearby you.
Yes, very, very true. And if you go to Europe, they have something similar.
Well, very neat. Well, should we jump across the pond? Because you have toured, I mean, you've been all over the planet looking at gardens. So I don't know if we have the energy for that, but that's my next destination or goal is to visit some places over in Europe and some gardens over there. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Kew Garden is phenomenal. Kuchenhof, which is in the bulb capital of the world. It's only like, what is it, 8-9 weeks in the spring. Yeah, there's some stunning things to see. We caught a flower and garden show when we were in London, and they're even more crazy about some of their horticulture stuff than we are. So yeah, it's been a very enjoyable having the ability to travel to see those things. So hopefully coming up, we'll be heading off again and seeing some more.
Was that the Chelsea Garden Show?
No, we went to the Hampton Court
Okay.
Flower and Garden Show. And it was wonderful. I have not been to Chelsea.
Okay. Yeah, I know they over there, they have these individual or maybe company or some types of displays, artist displays, and it's pretty innovative, some of the things that they're doing with plant material.
And when we were at the Hampton Court, I mean, you would go, and if you wanted to see the rose display, I mean, it was like as big as like a circus tent with just roses. And then you would go into where they were growing the bulbs, and the amount of bulbs and the displays were just phenomenal. And that's, you walk away going, oh, wow, you really get the wow of what can be done.
I need more horticulturists in this world. That's the only way. Yes, you need more. Anything else to talk about with the botanical gardens?
No, just do your research. Go out. Like I said, there's some that I've been to in California. There's some, out, in Minnesota. I forgot that one. There's an excellent Minnesota landscape arboretum, which is in Chaska, Minnesota. That's a very, very nice botanic gardens to go and visit. So, Katie, you asked, what do we have, fairly local? Well, within maybe a 2-3 state radius, you can see a lot.
That does remind me, I was at the Phoenix Botanic Garden many years ago. And I've grown up in the Midwest with trees and shrubs, and this was just like, the House of Pain. It was just cactus, and I'm just like, I feel very uncomfortable here.
Yeah. The one in Tucson, I've been to that botanic garden, and it's very gray, a lot of green gray. But I also have never been there when everything's in bloom, which they say is, when everything pops and you get all of the, their pollinators and their critters that visit the plants. So that's something I have not been out there to see.
Yes. Yeah. When in the I think, is it the springtime or maybe it's the winter when it cools down and these pops of color just start exploding everywhere. So
yeah, usually after they've had their rain season, and then boom, everything just comes out.
Well, to shift gears here, Martha, I must say, visiting your home before in the past has created new life goals for myself. I don't know how, but I will try. But you have actually absolutely stunning yard. What you do with like forms, textures, colors of this different plant material. I mean, it is beautiful. It's amazing. But there's one thing I noticed throughout your entire yard is a certain species of tree, the beech tree.
Yep.
I don't see this tree anywhere else practically. why is it all over your yard?
Because we're crazy. Gosh, my husband and I fell in love with beech trees when we were on the East Coast, and just loved the majestic look of them, the interesting bark in the winter, the different colors. So when we moved back to Illinois, there was a dying plump birch in our front yard, and I knew it had borer. I knew exactly what it was. So we cut that down, and that's when we put in our first beech, which was the fern-leaf beech,
Mhm.
which is Fagus sylvatica asplenifolia. And that was in 1995. And that tree now is stunning, and it's only in its early juvenile years, because they can get huge. And from there, we got into some different plant organizations, started to really get into oddball plants, smaller scale plants, ones with very unusual foliage or a shape. So I was actually counting, I think I have 12 different types of beech in the yard. There's, well, the European beech and the American beech. The European beech seems to have more cultivars available in the trade. So they've done a lot more breeding with the European beech. So the fern leaf, people stop and ask what it is. We have it lit up at night. It's just a beautiful, beautiful tree. The other one that we added shortly thereafter, we were on a garden tour and we saw it, was a purple contorted beech. Now, the contorted is tortuosa, and a lot of people think that it's the weeping beech, but it's not. And I found this, I had to get it through mail order someplace from the Northwest. And with that tree, as it grows, it has very horizontal branches that kind of gnarl out. What we did was we trained the center to a point that we wanted it to start forming on its own. So we trained the center up to about 15, maybe 18 feet. And now we're just letting it go. And it is beautiful. It is just a gorgeous, gorgeous tree. It's just that it's very hard to take a picture of because the foliage is so dark. And in the winter, when you can see the branch structure, it's just so hard to photograph. So if I can get the right timing where we just have a little dusting of snow and I can go out and get that picture, then you can kind of see the outline of where those branches are. Some other ones, one that we have, and we just got this one a couple of years ago, is Ansorgii. And this, if you looked at it, would not think it's a beech. Ansorgii has very thin strap-like purple leaves. So it's very, very different than any of the other ones that we have. In fact, I think it's a little bit more sensitive to heat and hot sun because the leaves are a bit finer. So I have it facing west, but it gets afternoon shade. So that one, and then we just found in our travels a new one we hadn't seen. It's a miniature fern-leaf beech. And the name is escaping me right now, but I'll try to get you a picture. And that is, it's just cute. That's all I can say. It's just a cute little tree. So whoever ends up with our home is either going to love us or hate us. Because we also have a European beech hedge where we prune it back. I think we have 16 beeches that we prune back, and these are beeches that want to grow. They want to be tall trees. And when you look in there into where the trunks are, some of them are now getting quite large. So they're either going to love us or hate us.
So everybody's been warned. We're looking at Martha's house.
I'll still buy it.
Yeah, and I do try to keep everything labeled, because some of these things, you get into some of these oddball plants and it's like, oh boy. So I really do. That's why I can't remember this miniature fern leaf, because we just bought it and it's not registering yet. So.
So I've got a couple of questions for you here.
Mhm.
This may be like asking somebody what their favorite child is, but what's your favorite one of the different varieties you have?
Of beech?
Yeah.
Oh, God, the fern leaf, number one. The fern leaf by far, it's just the overall shape. We've actually purchased some and donated them to our town because we want to see them. So we're trying to get away from, our town's motto is Maple City. Well, I'm trying to get away from being known as Maple City. So I'm constantly working with the city, the park district, trying to bring in different trees, different ones. So we've been slowly introducing more beech. The fern leaf was one. As I said, also the contorted beech, because it's not common at all. And it's just phenomenal when it comes out, and it has the deep, deep purple black leaves, purple black. It's just gorgeous. That little Ansorgii, it's just odd. That's why I like it. But we've got an upright Dowick. Sometimes it's called red obelisk, which is your upright narrow. I'm trying to think what else we have. We've got a couple other miniatures, and then our new house is built across the street, and we don't have a purple beech. So my husband decided he wanted to see a purple beech, so we gave our neighbors a purple beech so we could see it. So I don't know who's the plant nerd anymore, me, me or him.
So then for people who may not know what a beech looks like, how would you go about IDing a beech, or what would you kind of look for?
On a beech, the winter buds are very distinctive. They're long, somewhat slender, kind of a reddish brown. But the bark, sometimes people call it like an elephant's trunk. It's very smooth, very gray. So those would be the two things right there. And once you see the beech leaf on a normal tree, yeah, you can do a drive-by pretty quick on a beech tree for its shape and the bark.
Are beeches fairly easy to have in your lawn?
We've had some success and failures over the years, but that's just the nature of being a plant collector. But no, we've been very fortunate, and they take fairly well. We just have to be more concerned with what the eventual size is going to be, because some of these can get quite large. But no, it's they're fairly easy. We haven't had any, I'm trying to think if we've had any major issues. No, I can't think of it. Oh, I mean, wind damage, but the beech tree, the branches are, they're not like they're in the oak family. They're all in the Fagaceae family, but on a beech tree, they're more, supple. So they tend to bend and flow with the wind. So after a storm, we might have a lot of little branchlet litter down on the ground, but we did have one storm that came through, and we did lose a limb, but it healed right over.
What about beech leaf disease? Is that something that we have to be concerned with in Illinois?
I have not personally seen it, and I have not personally had any reports. From my understanding, it's a disease that's spread through nematodes, which are microscopic worms. So when an insect feeds on a diseased tree, then goes to a healthy tree, that's how it progresses. The other thing, it will kill the tree. It will kill a mature beech tree in 6 to 10 years, so they report. And a lot of saplings and seedlings succumb very, very quickly to it. What you see, pictures that I've seen, because again, I have not personally seen it, it's usually shows up in the leaves first, and the leaves tend to have some discoloration, not like the whole leaf, but usually between the veins. The leaves also might get thick and brittle, and eventually that they fall off. So I personally, when I was looking that up, didn't find any reports in this area. It doesn't mean it's not here. And it is up in Wisconsin and Minnesota, up in the northern climes. And again, hopefully people can be educated and not move beechwood, not move beech trees, because unknowingly, just like with emerald ash borer, they're bringing that disease into their backyard, and the chances are very great that it's going to pass it along. There's also a beech bark disease. So you've got beech leaf disease, you've got beech bark disease, and the bark disease is, what was that? It was I want to say an aphid, or maybe it was a scale and a fungal canker. So, I mean, there are some things that are out there, but hopefully they won't hit my yard until I'm gone. When Chris has it, and he has to start taking care of them.
Need to quarantine that yard, Martha.
Yeah. Put a big protection zone around it.
Yes.
Bubble.
Yeah.
Get that bubble going. That's what it feels like these days. Yeah. So here's a question from someone I know well, and I think you all know as well. Let's just say it's me. So in my front yard, which is west facing, there's in a line, pin oak, white ash, driveway, white ash, Norway maple, sweet gum, white pine, all large, all mature trees. There's a green ash also in there that's dying. It's on its way out. EAB got it to it before I could. And I don't like Norway maple. I'm just not a fan. But what do you think, Martha? Can you cut down a tree, a mature tree, just because you don't like it and you want to plant, say, a beech in its place? Okay.
Sure can.
Okay, I'll give you my wife's phone number. We can talk about this. We can talk it through.
It's an opportunity. If there's something there that's just not what you like, or like you said with the ash that is just going to go downhill.
Mhm.
Yeah. Norway maples, they've had their time. They were known for that crimson color all year round. But as you know, we've had a lot of reports over the years about their reseeding and starting to spread. And they're a slow growing tree. So, if you wanted something with any, big size to it, yeah, I would say you'd have my permission.
Yes. So I was burying a underground dog fence this last weekend up over in the back part of the yard where the woods are. And I look up and I come face to face with a Norway maple seedling. I hadn't seen that before. And then I see another one and another one and another one. I'm thinking, it just, once I saw it, I then saw it everywhere. And so I'm thinking,
yeah,
you know what, I'm doing, this is a service. I will say that. I will be doing a service for the woods behind my house. And I would love to plant, I would love to have a beech tree in my yard. The trunk, absolutely stunning. I love just the texture of that. But I have space for another tree on that west facing part of the yard. What else could I try besides a beech?
Yeah, besides beech, okay.
Yes.
Well, one of my favorite trees besides beech is your Nissa, your black Tupelo, a native tree. We have one in our yard. Phenomenal fall color. Not a lot of pests, not a lot of problems. It forms a very nice, uniform, somewhat pyramidal crown. And it's gorgeous in the fall. I mean, the colors just, if when you get it just right, the inside is kind of a gold, the outside is a red orange, and it just looks like it's glowing from within. They are a bit temperamental to get started. So I always suggest I wouldn't go out and try to find the biggest one you can find, something on the smaller size, because they do send down a tap root. But that's an excellent tree. Any of the pines, the hornbeams, there is the European and there is the American. And they also, sometimes they're called musclewood. They also have a bark similar to a beech, but again, very few diseases, very few problems. I think Michael Durr in the Tree Guru book highly praises your carpinus, or the hornbeams. The other one that we just found, and I've never grown this before, and maybe some of you all have, is Katsura tree, or Cercidophyllum. This one, it's again, not a lot of issues or problems with it. Relatively good grower. The one that we just got is a clump, so it has multiple trunks. And again, its fall color is phenomenal. You're getting into the golds and the oranges, and that's really, when I'm looking for a tree, I want more than one attribute. Yes, it's going to be a nice shade tree. That's an attribute, but what else? Is there some type of decorative part in the spring or the fall, or what about bark for winter interest during the rest of the season? So those right there, all good. I hesitate with oaks because of oak wilt, and at least up here in the Quad Cities, we've had quite a problem with it. I mean, there are some phenomenal oaks that would really fill in very nicely. It's just you're kind of playing Russian roulette in certain parts of the state where we know we have the fungus and the issue.
So earlier this week, Chris, Katie, and as we were getting ready for this, we were talking about our favorite trees, and Katie's is ginkgo, and you have some of those in your yard. So what's your favorite variety of ginkgo that's out there?
Well, I was thinking about that too. As I already said, we have 12 different types of beech. I figure we're at 7 different types of ginkgos. And there is one called green canopy, or sometimes it's listed as just canopy. And we bought this again 20 some years ago at a nursery in Michigan. And it's forming this just wonderful bowl. It's just got the most unique shape to it. That one we both really like. Again, fall color is great. You're not having a lot of pests and problems. When we purchased it, it was a male, but after about 20 some years, one of the branches decided, no, I'm gonna be a girl. So we started to get fruit, and now I'm noticing we're getting some seedlings. And so I talked to some people much more well-versed in ginkgo than I, and they said that sometimes trees will do that. They'll just change a branch or whatever. And so that's what happened. That's what happened on that one. We have a fishtail ginkgo where the leaves are a little pendulous and they look like the tails of a fish. We have the dwarf that's out in the trade. I believe it's called American. We've got one called Troll. And there's another one we just got, and it's supposed to have very, very small leaves. And again, it's so new, I can't think of the name of it. But yeah, we kind of like ginkgos, and we like Japanese maples and, you know, some of those more obscure things.
So going back to those trees sending out female branches, can you prune that out? Or will it keep sending that out if you don't want the seeds and stuff?
You know, I don't know. I didn't ask that when I was at this tree conference. It's worth a try. I mean, it's worth a try. I mean, people don't want the female trees because the fruit, and it's very odoriferous, should I say? But, you know, overseas, it's a delicacy. Overseas, they harvest the ginkgo fruit. And when we were living we lived in South Korea, they would put out tarps on the roads and just let them dry because they wanted to get down to the little nut inside. And oh boy, you knew when that was, because it was smelly.
They're good for practical jokes too.
Yeah, I can see that.
Put a bag in the back of someone's car. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my doors locked around you guys.
Hide them in their backpack.
Yeah, oh, geez.
So I was at also a retired colleague, Dave Robson's house, who has a also fabulous Japanese maple collection in his yard. He had the same thing. So his neighbor had a ginkgo tree, all male, except the one branch that went over his driveway was female.
Oh, that's
He
funny.
just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, all the luck. You couldn't go
Mhm.
away, but
Yeah.
Now, I've been in David's garden also. He's got quite a collection, a lot of hostas. So he's got a lot of shade, but he has a lot of really nice texture and colors in his garden.
And to give people a scale of your yard, I know the way you talk, some people might be thinking in their brain, oh, she must have acreage. You know, there must be blocks and blocks of trees. How large are we talking about?
It's under an acre. I think it's like 0.8. And there's only one plant that is original from the previous owners. Everything else came out. And what I personally liked about this piece of property was it was a clean slate for me. What was there was easy to remove. As I said, the birch trees already had borers. We did have a large spruce that wasn't pruned properly, and it had included bark. And after a windstorm, it split. That was quite a large tree, so we had that taken out. So yeah, everything in that garden, I can honestly say, has been touched by us. Put it in. Yeah.
And you're not allowed to say what plant it is that is original, because that's your question. Every time someone shows up to your yard, you say, you must find the original plant, the only thing remaining. So
the one plant that has
that's a test.
Yeah.
Did you find it, Chris?
I don't think so. I think I was
let you know.
No, well, I was in a tour group, and so I think as we were walking around with the group, someone else had found it, and I just so happened into the conversation
and took credit.
Of course, I said, "Oh, I knew that. I knew that all along." Well, Martha, I mean, that was a lot of fun talking about that, but we have a couple questions we would like to ask you, retirement questions, to grant upon us your knowledge, some tips, advice. So Katie, would you mind kicking off with your question, please?
My wisdom.
Yes.
We need it all. So what was probably your favorite part of the job?
Boy, I've always enjoyed teaching. I've always enjoyed the process of writing a new program and, being able to present it and kind of seeing that aha moment where people like, oh, I didn't think of that, or, oh, okay. Or when you're talking with someone who is so new that, it's just amazing how much they, want to absorb. With any job, Katie, there's always the downsides, there's the paperwork and there's all that stuff, which has to be done. But I have to say what I've enjoyed the most, teaching and through extension over the years, the opportunities to go to conferences, to see other parts of the country that maybe I wouldn't have necessarily seen in that much detail, belonging to several professional organizations, being fortunate to be on the board of a couple of them. So I was able to travel maybe a bit more. But you always come back with something new. You always learn. So teaching and just being able to, network and get to know some great plant people around the country.
And it may be along that same vein. There are some ridiculous moments that can happen in this job. I mean, some of the phone calls, if only we could, we could write a book. Each one of us could have our own volume in this series here. But do you have a moment that stands out that's just like funny, just unbelievable, best, is there a moment that stands out in your memory as with extension?
Oh, so many. How
can you choose?
I've always liked the snakes in a bag. Here, identify this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before, when we had film canisters, they would drop their sample off in a film canister and you never really knew what was going to come popping out at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then years and years ago, there was one, this is when I first started. It was in January. And it was this kind of a sad story. Their family dog had passed away. And they wanted to know how they could put it in their garden. So I'm like, you just bury it. Well, it was January and they didn't know what to do with this pet. So and toward the end of the conversation, we were just having a good time, but I don't know why, I just still remember. And they sent it to me because it was going in the garden.
Yeah.
They really didn't know who else to send it to. And I had only been with Illinois at the time, maybe 2 weeks. So like, oh, give it to the new kid. Because no one else. But in the long run, they did have success with it. And we did have a very nice conversation, but that sticks out in my mind. I don't know why.
All right, one last one. Greatest resource or resources for an educator or as an educator?
Boy, other horticulturists. As I said before, we can't know everything. University of Illinois Extension, we have a fantastic statewide team across the whole state. And we all have our levels of what we consider our expertise. So I'm not going to stress myself out and try to answer something that I know I can call Ken and he'll 90% of the chance know it. Chris with turf questions. And in return, people contact me for trees and for herbaceous ornamentals. So I've always found the coworkers that I've worked with, I've always found, I said earlier, I've made some phenomenal gardening friends across the country. And, just being able to pick up a phone and talk to one of them and say, hey, what about this? Or what about that? Or, if I need a keynote speaker, oh, yes, happy, So it's a lot of the networks that you build and the friendships. And that's what they say, when you retire, you don't necessarily miss the job, you miss the people. So I would have to say other horticulturists and just gardeners. They're, you know, when you get in with a good group of gardeners, it's a lot of fun.
Well, Martha, that is, I think, the perfect way to cap off this conversation. It was wonderful chatting with you. We best wishes on retirement. We're going to miss you, which means we're going to come visit.
Yes,
So.
well, you can't get rid of me because I believe I live in one of your counties.
Wendy has the volunteer paperwork ready already. So we will be,
Yeah,
that's probably going to be in the mail tonight. Yeah.
They don't want me up here. I can't get back. So I'll have to find someplace else.
Well, Martha, thank you so much for being on the show today. We do appreciate you taking the time out of your weeks here. And so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, the Good Growing Podcast is produced by Wendy Ferguson and edited by me, Chris Enroth. A special thanks to our co-host with us every single week, Ken Johnson, Katie Parker. Thank you so much for being here as well.
Yeah, thank you, Martha and Chris and Ken. It's always a pleasure to see you guys.
Yes, thank you, Martha. Congrats on your upcoming retirement. And Chris and Katie, let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall be doing this again next week. We're going to be talking with Sarah Johnson, who is a field botanist with the Illinois Natural History Survey. And so that should be a very interesting conversation, seeing what's going on out in the wide world around us. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching, and as always, keep on growing.